take a moment to introduce myself. I am Sarah Boreen with Flourish, and we asked the Office of Sustainability to see if they wanted to do a program for us, and they so kindly agreed to have Ben do a Staying Sustainable While Staying Inside program. So we are so happy to have Ben here, and I have his bio pulled up that I would like to go ahead and just formally introduce him. Let me see. My apologies. Trying to get that pulled up here. Thought I had it pulled up. Okay, yes, sorry. So Ben Kalscheur has served in the Texas A&M Office of Sustainability since 2010. Wow, Ben, 10 years. That's amazing. Ben earned a Master of Arts in Sociology from UW Milwaukee and a Master's in Water Management from Texas A&M. In the Office of Sustainability, Ben's core job function is running an internship program devoted to creating a culture of sustainability through outreach. Ben advocates for incorporating social justice into sustainability and strives to build diverse, dynamic teams. Thank you so much, Ben, for being with us here today, and I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Happy to be here today. So just put this presentation together very recently. I have not had the chance to actually practice this out loud, so please forgive me if it is less than perfect, but we're going to do our best here to see what we got. So first, I think it's important to define sustainability. I realize for me, it's like, second nature, but some people on the call might not know what the definition is. So commonly what you hear is that it's meeting the needs of the present without sacrificing future generations' ability to meet those same needs. So it's very holistic, it's very long-term thinking. So it's kind of like the decisions you make today, how are those going to make the world better today, but also how are they going to impact the future? So really thinking long-term, holistic future. And we really break it down into these three categories, three components of sustainability. So the one that you probably have heard about a lot is environmental sustainability. This is where you're going to hear like climate change. Really climate change, you can think about that in terms of environmental sustainability, or water issues or anything related to the environment. Even recycling is something you could think about when you think about environmental sustainability. Next, we have economic sustainability. And this is where you can really look at our economy. If you were going to install solar panels, maybe you wouldn't think about like the immediate payback, but 10, 15 years down the road, how is that going to pay you back? It's going to start giving you free electricity after it's paid for itself. So it's more of a long-term decision, but it's good for your wallet in the long term and it's good for the environment. Or like more of a structural point of view would be income inequality. Next up, we have social sustainability. And I think this is really what it comes down to in the end, because we're really trying to save people. We're trying to save life on Earth, the way of life that we live. So that's really what we're trying to do. And we're trying to protect the environment, trying to protect the economies, make sure we have a great place, a great Earth that we can live on. And also not even just that, but we also think about what is happening today. We have a lot of social injustices. So how can we make the world better socially? So put all of that together. This is a visual representation of what sustainability is. If you could balance the environment with the economy, with social equity and social justice, you can create this sustainable society. So that's what we're really trying to do when we talk about sustainability. How can we really make the world better for today, but also for the future? And now thinking about the times that we're in, right? These are unprecedented times. COVID-19 has changed everything about the way that we live, that we work, and it has really revealed a lot about the challenges, the sustainability challenges that we look at in this field. So I really think this is a moment in time where you can really learn about sustainability and you can really see how all of these challenges that we talk about in the sustainability field are really coming to a head. We really have real world concrete examples. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I think this is just a great opportunity to learn about sustainability, why it's important, and why these issues that we've been talking about, how they've only been accelerated, exacerbated by COVID-19. So I want to look first at environmental sustainability. And what I want to talk about is obviously COVID-19 is a disease, right? And when we look at sustainability challenges, we see that diseases are more likely to occur. And when we think about diseases, you can think about disease vectors. So vectors, vector-borne diseases are basically diseases that are transmitted to humans, typically from insects. And what you see then is mosquitoes are a very common carrier, things like Zika virus or malaria, and ticks, deer ticks, Lyme disease. So we're going to see more diseases happening due to things like climate change. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. But also, when you think about these disease-borne vectors, you're typically talking about insects, and maybe this isn't technically a disease vector, but bats are and something else that you can think about that can transmit diseases, right? And we'll talk about that in relation to coronavirus in just a second. But these disease vectors, one of the reasons that they are increasing, why we can expect more of these pandemics, we can expect more diseases that are new and emerging that we maybe don't have the ability to handle as a world society, is because of climate change. And climate change isn't the cause of coronavirus, but it has made it more likely to happen. And some of the factors, and this is really looking at the vector-borne insect diseases, for why we can expect more of that, is one of them is rising global temperatures. And why these rising global temperatures are important is because what they're doing is they're increasing the length of the breeding season, and then also the geographical distribution of where these insects are going to have more places to live as the climate warms. Places become warmer that weren't warm before, so you have more areas where they can breed in longer seasons. And this combines with increased rainfall from climate change, increased rainfall, flooding. The world's getting hotter, it's getting more humid. So again, the geographic range of where these insects can breed is increasing, and also that humidity, and it also leads to the eggs hatching faster as well. So we can expect that we will see more diseases but related to climate change. It's not the only reason. And I mentioned the bats before, and the reason I bring that up is because based on the current tracing evidence, what we're kind of under the impression is that this particular coronavirus, COVID-19, it attacks your respiratory system, and it developed in bats. The coronaviruses are very likely to develop in bats. And what we have seen is not that, people are eating bats. That was like a rumor. It wasn't because someone was eating a bat that this happened. It's really related to habitat destruction. So climate change, one of the causes of climate change is habitat destruction. So what the working theory is that a bat infected an animal that was being sold in a wild animal market in China. And someone purchased the animal, not the bat, but the animal that was being sold in that wild animal market. And they were the first person to contract COVID-19. And then that now is spreading from human to human, right? So it's not like someone ate a bat or someone got bit by a bat, but this bat infected this animal being sold at a wild animal market. And the reason that this bat was even there in the first place is because habitats are being destroyed. They're searching for food. Human beings are encroaching on nature, and animals are having to take further drastic measures to try to survive. So they're coming closer to humans for food, coming into these marketplaces. And that's something where you might think, well, this wild animal market, well, that happened in China. So that there's an issue, like, why are we eating wild animals? But people all over the world are eating wild animals. Wild animal markets, wet markets are happening all over the world. It's not just isolated in one place. So you can't blame one country for that. And also, people are hunting, they're fishing. Lots of people are eating wild animals. So I don't think that's necessarily the thing to be focusing on, but it's really the fact that we have closer contact with things like bats coming in. So that's an issue that you have to think about, and that's all exacerbated by climate change. And then if you don't really believe the fact that that there's wild animal markets are happening all over the world, I'm going to guess that it was more than a month ago, you probably didn't realize that there was more domesticated tigers in the United States than in the wild in the world. So I think that's just something, just a little fun Tiger King reference, but just to point out that you may not realize that wild animal markets are happening all over the world, but you probably didn't realize that there was more domesticated tigers in the U.S. And so thinking about how the climate change is impacting environmental stuff, one thing also about this coronavirus is we've really seen nature bouncing back. So we've seen some silver linings, right? So we've got mountain goats coming out of the mountains in England. We got wild boars wandering the streets in England and other countries. We have coyotes, which are very skittish around humans, you know, coming out. We're seeing them spotted at the Golden Gate Bridge. And the reason I point this out is I think what it's showing you is that human beings really are the biggest driver behind, you know, environmental change, habitat destruction, climate change. So our actions are a really big indicator of how nature is going to do. And I think the silver lining there is that we're seeing how us having the world shut down, how much nature has been able to be resilient and bounce back. And if we think about sustainability and sustainable solutions, we can really make a huge impact as human beings, the choices we make, the actions that we take, the way that we produce energy and all of those things. So that is kind of the silver lining for what we've seen with the environmental issues around COVID-19. And now I want to move into the economic. And what we're seeing right now is unprecedented, you know, economic hardship happening all across the United States, all across the world. And in particular, what this is really revealing is income inequality. It's a really big problem in the United States. In particular, it's a big problem throughout the world. But what you've seen is a lot of people have lost jobs in the United States. According to the Economic Policy Institute, in the past 4 weeks, they're estimating that 20 million people have filed for unemployment. And I think the number that I saw yesterday was 26 million people had filed for unemployment. And this is really devastating because, you know, about 49% of Americans are one paycheck away from basically financial ruin. And then you consider the way that our economy works in terms of how we are able to get health insurance, and it's typically through your employment. So if you're losing your employment, what that also means is that there's a good chance that you've lost your health insurance, or you're at a higher risk for losing it. So the Economic Policy Institute also, what their numbers revealed was that they're thinking that about 9.2 million people are at a high risk for losing their health insurance over these past 4 weeks. And this is just a tweet that Kasim Rashid put out that kind of just laid out. So those are the numbers from the Economic Policy Institute, and compare that to all of these other countries. They have 0 people that have lost their health insurance, and that's because their health insurance is not tied to their employment. So that is kind of a, you know, an economic flaw that's really been revealed, because that's really been devastating for people. Just imagine you don't have the money and you get sick, and now you can't go and get treated, and that means this is going to spread, you know, more, because other people are going to have it, they can't get treated, or maybe they can't stay home. So that is a big economic problem. Income inequality is really being revealed here. And how did our government respond to this? And I think this also reveals something as well. So there's stimulus packages around the world, and you see what other countries are getting. You know, in the UK, about 80% of worker salaries. In South Korea, 70% of worker salaries. In Canada, $2,000 per month. And they just did something for students, getting about $1,500 per month. But in the US, the only thing that we've gotten for our everyday citizens is a one-time $1,200 check. And in some cases, people aren't even able to have gotten this check yet. It may take a while to arrive. And you remember that 49% around of Americans are one paycheck away from financial ruin. So what this is showing you is that there we have a really big imbalance in our economy, in the way that you know, income is distributed. And you might think, well, maybe we just don't have enough money to go around. But then keep in mind that the Bezos and the Waltons, you know, the owners of Walmart and Amazon, they made $52 billion this year, and they made 11.3 billion in the last 24 hours. I guess that was April 15th. And the person who tweeted this, his name is Dan Price. He is the CEO of Gravity Payments. It's a credit card processing company. And he did something pretty revolutionary for a CEO. He decided that every single employee in his company was going to be paid $70,000 at a minimum. And he slashed his pay from $1.1 million a year to $70,000. And now, in the midst of COVID-19, he's actually taking $0 in pay. So this is an example of a CEO who is trying to change the system, trying to, you know, distribute the income that their company, because all those workers are working together to generate that income, is trying to distribute that a little more equally so everyone can survive, have a good quality of life, and get by. And he's still having a great quality of life as well, right? So that is something that I think is really important. When you think about income inequality, we have money, it's just really concentrated. For example, the wealthiest Americans have about $32 trillion in offshore tax havens, where they're not even getting taxed for that money. And think about how beneficial that tax income could be to stimulus checks or to economic responses to COVID-19, or how that can make people's lives a lot better. So I think that's another thing that you're really seeing. So now moving on from the economic sustainability, I want to talk to you about social sustainability. And what we've really seen with COVID-19 is some really huge racial health disparities. And in particular, Black Americans are being impacted much more disproportionately than other people in our country. So in Louisiana and Chicago, 70% of those who have died of COVID-19 related complications were Black. In Milwaukee County, it's 81%. And you might think, well, maybe that is some sort of genetic predisposition
Okay.
for this, or maybe you might think that it's, it's biological, it's genetic, or it's some sort of personal failings. But it's not. That's not the reason. The reason is structural racism. That it's a really huge part of our problem with our political, our economic, our social systems is policies and programs that are disproportionately impacting Black people. So Brittany Packnett Cunningham is an author, activist, just all around, badass woman. And she wrote this article. It was really accessible, simple article in Cosmopolitan. What she's explaining is that it's systematic racism for why Black people are more likely to die from COVID-19. And some of the highlights are housing discrimination and environmental racism. Decades of that in the United States has led to Black people more likely to live in indoor and outdoor spaces with poor air quality, which means that they are more likely to have asthma or have less well-functioning lungs, this is obviously a respiratory disease, so much more likely to die if contracted due to housing discrimination, environmental racism. And then also things like food deserts and low wages just means that you may have more likely to have diabetes or other health complications. So it's access to food or access to good jobs. And that's really a structural racism. So that's what you're really getting revealed in society. And then this is just showing you that it's not, it's race, it's class, it's gender, it's intersectional. And it's showing you that women are, much more likely to be working in essential jobs. One in three jobs held by women in the US have been designated as essential. And also non-white women are more likely to be doing these essential jobs than anyone else. So that kind of ties into the low wages. It ties into, the structural racism, but it's also the fact that people of color are more likely to have to be working right now and not be able to have the luxury like I do to work from home, but to have to be on the front lines. And oftentimes these essential jobs are also not necessarily getting paid, but they're deemed essential. So that's something else you can think about economically. So from here, I want to talk about the fact that we had about a full week's news cycle pointing out that Black people and other people of color were more likely to die from COVID-19. And, maybe it's just a coincidence. I'm not convinced that it is. But after that week of the news cycle, what you really saw was you saw politicians, you saw corporations really pushing hard to reopen the economy. And then that also was met by some protests happening in different cities. One happened in Austin of people, and you look at this picture, and this is mostly white people that are protesting that they want to reopen the economy because they possibly feel like, well, it's not as big of a risk to me, and I really want to start doing all of these things that I used to be able to do, even though it's not safe. The science is telling us it's not safe to reopen the economy, but you can kind of see that reaction. And then at the same time, white supremacy is on the rise during this time. Kristen Clark is the president and executive director of the National Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under the law. And what she is tweeting here is that white supremacist groups have used this moment in history to recruit, to grow their base, to grow their numbers, to use fear, to think that this is going to be the solution. And from here, we've also seen that we've had a lot more anti-Asian bias and discrimination and racism happening since this coronavirus. And this has been exacerbated by politicians. And you can point to a lot of the things that Donald Trump has tweeted or said, but it's not just Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Joe Biden and the Democratic Party released a campaign ad just a few days ago that was putting all of the blame on China for the coronavirus. And yes, I realize the coronavirus started in China, but this is something that it doesn't matter what your race is. This is a human global pandemic. Anyone can get this disease, and it's really kind of just hamstringing us to use fear, to use racism, to other somebody, to stereotype somebody, to put this blame on somebody else, because it's not helping us solve the problem at all. What we should be doing is working together. You know, our scientists from all these different countries should be working together, trying to develop this vaccine, and, you know, pooling resources. How can we all work together? That's really what we need to see. We have to come together to get through this, because that's really where our strength lies. It's not in division, it's not in hatred, it's not in racism. It's by working together. So that's something that I think is really important. And also, just like this next fact to just show you another thing that is being kind of called out is like immigration. Immigrants are being you know, kind of targeted as well. And the reality is that about one fifth of all healthcare workers are immigrants. About 30% of doctors and surgeons are immigrants, you know. So immigrants are on the front lines. They're on the front lines treating people with COVID-19. They're out there every day saving lives, and they're making our country better. So I think this is a time to realize that, you know, our strength is not in division, it's in unity. So that's something, social sustainability, that has really been revealed with COVID-19. So I know that was like a deep and heavy. And again, what's a silver lining for these economic and social problems? It is that people are coming together. They're realizing that the government's response is not adequate. So what they're doing is forming mutual aid networks. These are forming up all over the country. And these are basically just networks where people are kind of exchanging resources and services and trying to take care of the people that are the most vulnerable. So it's not a mutual aid network, but locally, you know, the 12 Can is providing food for people on campus. The Brazos Valley Food Bank is, you know, providing food for people in the community, and they are looking for volunteers to help deliver food, all of those kind of things, or even just donating money. If you have money to donate, that is a way that you can help your local community. Or you could consider trying to form a mutual aid network in your neighborhood or in your apartment complex. And there's some resources at the end that explain how you can go about doing that. All right, so I know this was real heavy, and it's all about staying sustainable while you're inside. And I think the most important thing you can do is educate yourself, learn about these issues, learn about sustainability challenges, learn about structural racism, income inequality, climate change, how all of these things are connected, how all of these things have, you know, worked together to make this global pandemic, you know, happen and make it a lot worse than, you know, maybe it needs to be, if we were to have more structure in place to take care of each other. So that is really the first thing you can do, is just educate yourself and start thinking about how important that is to learn about sustainability and these challenges, and why we really need to work on solving these together, because it's going to be for all of our benefits. But this is a flourish talk. So I want to give you some things that you can use to flourish while you are at home, while you are inside, a little bit lighter. So if you care about climate change, one of the things that you could do is start eating more vegan food. I'm not telling you you have to be 100% vegan. Even if it's just one vegan meal a week, you are going to do, you're going to help out the environment. You're going to reduce your environmental, your carbon footprint by doing that. So with that in mind, we have a few recipes. These are some students in our internship program. So Faiza has a recipe for some curry right here. And this is recorded, so you can go back and check this out. And this is Lily's recipe for, I actually can't see the top. I think this is her matcha banana cookies, I believe. And then she's got some almond and gluten-free, I think these are pancakes. I can't remember. Sorry, there's all blocked on the top, and I can't remember what the actual recipe is for my view. But hopefully you can see it. So just some things you could try in your house. And then this is my recipe. So this is a really simple recipe to make. Anyone can make this. I'm sure a lot of people have noodles or peanut butter or whatever. So this is just something you can make. Just my peanut sauce noodles. And then this is, obviously hand sanitizer is really important right now, but you can't buy it in the store. You know, it's almost impossible to buy in the store, but this is one of those things where you could make it at home. This is a recipe for do-it-yourself hand sanitizer. It comes from Popular Science. I've made this myself. It is very easy to make. And so this is a recipe for you to be able to do that. And I realize it may be hard to find the rubbing alcohol that you need, or the isopropyl alcohol that you need, but that could be something that you have at home already. Just all you need is that, some aloe vera gel, and some essential oils like tea tree oil or eucalyptus oil. Just blend those together. You have your very own hand sanitizer. And then one of the things here is make sure you label your bottle. You want to make sure you remember what's in that bottle. All right, and then what else can you do? We're all inside. We're all using electricity in our apartments, in our houses. So this is the time where we can think about, you know, turning off the lights and how are we gonna, how hot and how cold are we gonna set our thermostat? So that's something you can think about. How can you reduce your use of electricity while you're inside? And everyone right now, I hope you're washing your hands a whole lot. But what you could do is while you're washing your hands for 20 seconds, and make sure it's at least 20 seconds, you can turn the water off during that 20 seconds and just save a little bit of water during this time. And then finally, it's really important for all of us to be wearing some masks when we go outside. So you can make your own do-it-yourself mask. And you can make, if you got some sewing skills, I don't have the sewing skills, you can make this nice cloth mask with some fabric and some elastic. And then if you don't have sewing skills, you can cut up some cotton t-shirts and you can form them. There's some other ways you can do it that are more simple. This is a more complex way to do this, but this is more protective if you use this version. And I have, there'll be a link in the resources that will take you to how you can actually make all these masks. And the thing about these masks right here, these two you see, is they're not necessarily going to protect you from getting COVID-19. But what they're going to do is if you are a carrier of COVID-19 and you're going to be coughing and spreading droplets, this is going to really reduce that spread. So what it's going to really do is make sure that other people aren't going to get sick because you're sick. And so that's really like the thing about masks. I think a lot of people are thinking about masks in terms of how is this going to benefit me? But what we should be thinking about is how is myself wearing a mask, how is that going to benefit other people? If everyone thinks like that, how are my actions going to benefit other people? And everyone is wearing masks when they're out in public, that's also going to benefit you because there's going to be a lot less droplets out there to get you infected and you're also not going to be spreading it as well. So kind of just a reframe of how we think about masks. It's not really to protect yourself, it's really to protect other people. And also you can make some really complicated masks if you have some engineering skills and they would totally protect you. This is just one example I thought was kind of amusing. They use a snorkel for this, but this gives you protection very close to an N95 mask. I think it may be almost the same as that. So there's all kinds of things you can do depending on how industrious you are, how good you are at engineering things. But there's lots of different ways you can make masks, but just wear masks, even if it's just a cut up t-shirt, that's what I do. And it's just something that can help. And finally, I think the most important thing that all of us can do is we're learning about sustainability. We're learning about these sustainability challenges. We can really see in real time how this is all unfolding. So what that means is we really have to be an active citizen. It's really time for us to get involved. We have to make sure we're going to vote, get involved in the political process, locally, nationally. And just think about all the things you're learning. Are there candidates that are more likely to support those things that you're learning about, the things that we need to make our world more sustainable? And those are the candidates we want to put in office. And there may be candidates that maybe they have some of the things that you like, but they're not, maybe not as progressive as you would like them to be. But that is the opportunity where even once they're in office, you have to still put pressure that these are the things we want to see to make our world more sustainable, to make a world better for all of us. Because that's really what it's about, is improving the world for everyone here. And that is what we're trying to do with sustainability. And these are just some of the resources that I use to create this presentation, and also some things that I think people might be interested in if you want to do a little bit more learning about COVID-19 and sustainability issues. So just have some resources here. And that is the entire presentation. So thank you all for listening and appreciate your time. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you so much, Ben. Yes, I was going to open it to questions. We have a good amount of time. It's exactly 12:30. So we have Ben until at least 1 p.m. If anybody has any questions or comments or anything, if you want to type something in the chat, I'm happy to kind of be the facilitator. Ben, how much hand sanitizer did you make? Did you make just a little bottle or?
Hello.
I made that recipe that I showed. I made half of that recipe, and I was able to fill I was able to fill 2.5 kind of small bottles of hand sanitizer with that, more than enough for myself. And then I made a bit more and I gave it to one of my friends as well.
Awesome. I think somebody else might have had a question. I heard somebody saying hello. Does that person have a question?
I have a question, Sarah.
Oh, yes.
Hey, Ben, my name is Jessica. I was just wondering how your team is interfacing with university leadership on this topic right now, or if at all, and what comes out of your work plus this situation we're in for the university or the place we work.
Yeah, Jessica, thank you. That's a good question. Basically, like the way that our office has been responding to this is thinking about like what are the things that we are able to offer, and one of the things that our office is able to offer is education and programming. So what we've tried to do as an office is we've created this virtual Earth Month, and we have programs happening this week and next week. And a lot of our topics are revolving around COVID-19. So really just trying to, what are the things that we're already doing? We have a pretty strong online presence. So how do we use our social media for educational purposes? How are we going to create programs and events to educate people? So that's really kind of how our office has been trying to respond. In terms of like our influence in terms of like university leadership and administration, I think that's a little bit trickier to answer. And I think the university leadership has been really overwhelmed with the response to how the university is going to respond to coronavirus, and students and refunds and moving everything online. So I think that there hasn't been a great opportunity for us to kind of have much influence on that. But we do have some channels that we're able to communicate with leadership through. So we've been able, to do that. But yeah, so thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't realize your Earth Day programming was a whole series of things, so I appreciate knowing that.
Yeah, if you go to our website, sustainability.tamu.edu, there's all kinds of events and things, and they'll also have all the recorded things. They'll be recorded, and we'll have the link for YouTube eventually as well.
Thank you so much, Ben. And so you have programming tomorrow as well. Do you want to talk about any more programming this week?
Yeah, actually, one of our student interns has a program at 2 p.m. today, and she's going to be talking more about the economics related to COVID-19. So some of the stuff I talked about, but in more depth and detail. So I'm really excited for that. Her name is Jenny. And then tomorrow, one of our students she's presenting. I'm missing. I think it's at noon, and she'll be looking at racial discrimination in relation to COVID-19. Yesterday we had to talk about what the absence of humans has taught us. So kind of what I mentioned in terms of nature bouncing back, but more details on that. And there's actually 10 student presentations looking at different aspects such as like homelessness as well. That was another presentation we had on Monday. So there's a lot of cool content that we have available. And then there's also some faculty stuff. We have a tourism talk on Monday, the 27th, and kind of relating that to COVID-19 and sustainability and climate change. So there's all kinds of cool stuff. And it's not just our office. We also have TRACS, which is the Texas Regional Alliance for Campus Sustainability. We have programs from statewide partners that have programs as well. So this is like a collaboration of sustainability offices all across the state of Texas.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. It sounds like there's a lot of offerings there. And I know you guys have been really busy, especially this week with just Earth Week and the Virtual Sustainability Awards yesterday. Very cool. We have a question from Connor. When you were talking about environmental sustainability and habitat destruction, do you think it is more realistic that we integrate protected natural areas into urban areas or stop expansion in order to keep habitats intact?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think it's probably like a combination of those. I think it's really important to increase natural environments in urban spaces. Definitely, I think there's ways you can integrate that. But I also think you have to also kind of think about, maybe we need to not try to develop all the land, that is out there, all that wild land, and maybe thinking more about how do you build more sustainably in terms of building up, building with more density and things like that. And that's relation to, habitat destruction. But obviously that could also create issues for in terms of spread of disease when everyone's living really close to each other. But if you're looking at habitat, then yeah, I think you have to definitely consider both of those options.
Great, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Not sure, let's see here. Jenny is joining us, and she's focusing on the wealth gap in America and the effects of coronavirus on the wealth gap. Yeah. Insurance tied to employment issues is a topic she'll be mentioning. Jenny, did you want to speak any more on that? I guess this is for another presentation.
Yeah, that was actually the one that I just mentioned.
Oh, the one on at 2 p.m. today. Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's Jenny. She'll be giving that talk at 2 p.m. today.
Okay, gotcha. Let's see. Does anybody else have any more questions for Ben? Or any comments or just ideas? Anything we want to discuss while we have him here with us? Let's see. Oh, would we be able to talk a little bit, Ben, about vegan restaurants in BCS? Do you know of any vegan restaurants in the area?
To be honest with you, I can't tell you like that. I don't think we have like just vegan restaurants in BCS where it's like just strictly vegan. I know that there's the Northgate juice joint, and I know that I think that they're basically vegan. They serve juice, but they also serve some other food as well. But the thing about vegan eating is you can get vegan options at almost every restaurant you go to these days. I first became a vegetarian when I was, I think, 21, and I was a vegetarian for about 10 years. And I just remember how hard it was to go to a restaurant and find anything I could eat. And now you can get food almost anywhere. You can go to Burger King and get yourself a vegan Whopper, and it actually tastes really good. It's maybe not very healthy for you, but it is vegan and it tastes very good. So I think you can find vegan options almost anywhere. And I guess one of the kind of vegan options I like is Torchy's. You can get like fried avocado tacos and independent tacos that are vegan, and you can just make your tacos vegan. So there's a lot of options for vegan eating, but there's not one restaurant like in particular I want to call out. But whoever asked this question, maybe you have some insight that I don't have, because quite honestly, I eat at home more than I do eating out. So there's probably some things that I'm just not aware of, to be honest with you.
This is Jessica. I asked that question. I have no idea of any restaurants in town, but I'm from Seattle and there's lots of them. So I just wondered if you knew.
Yeah, if you go to Houston or Austin or Dallas, that is where you can find probably like full on vegan restaurants where they only serve vegan food. But yeah, there's not any that I know of here that's like all they specialize in.
Thank you. Yeah, Debbie recommended Salada for some good vegan options because you can pick and choose.
Salad. Yeah.
And yes, and then let's see. Lily responded or has a comment that TAMU Dining has some great resources if anybody is looking at vegan eating on campus. I believe it's just their website is dining.tamu.edu, and also Lily mentioned that Nam Cafe has some good vegan options. I think that might be in South College Station if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but yeah, great point about we have vegan options on campus. Chartwell's has vegan options on all of the eating establishments on campus, vegan or vegetarian. So yeah, I didn't even think about that one.
No worries. Connor has a question for you, Ben. Are there any vegan-friendly foods that you avoid because of environmental effects of production, such as soy products, almond milk, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. Whenever you're trying to be sustainable, you try to make the best decisions that you can. But there's always complications with those decisions, right? It's like, okay, this is a great substitute, but then it might have another problem. Like you mentioned, almond milk in particular is very, very, very water intensive. Oat milk is, I think, the milk that is typically thought of as being much less water intensive than almond milk. So yeah, there's definitely, if you're on like a vegan journey, there's definitely choices that are going to be more sustainable, more environmentally friendly than others. And yeah, I think the milks you mentioned are a really good point. I think a lot of it is just trying to eat more fresh foods. Not eating so many packaged foods, and also you can think about like the waste that you're generating with the food that you're buying as well. So yes, there's definitely more options for being a vegan.
Great, thank you for that. And Connor, thanks you as well. It looks like Caitlin Bess, Caitlin raised her hand. Caitlin, do you want to ask a question to Ben, or would you like to put it in the chat?
No, I mean, can I just say it?
Sure.
It's actually just more like a comment about like food waste and loss. Something to consider, I guess, is that things like almond milk and oat milk and just alternative milks have much longer shelf lives too. So even though I guess the water impact, particularly of almond milk, is a lot higher than regular milk, if you don't drink a lot of milk, and that's like the only milk that you have for like 2 months, that might be better than buying regular milk and then throwing out half of it because it goes bad, et cetera, et cetera. Just something to consider.
Yeah, Caitlin, I think that's a great point. And I think the larger point that you made too about food waste is that this is a time where we are actually seeing quite a bit of food waste. A lot of farmers, dairy farmers, have had to basically either destroy crops or dump their milk and waste it because they don't have the market at restaurants that they normally do and things like that. So they're still producing the food, but they don't have a place to sell it. And then that also, so you think about that, but then there's also people all over the world right now that are starving. So we have enough food to feed everyone, but we don't necessarily have the ability to distribute it all to where it needs to go. So yeah, food waste right now, it's definitely something that we should all be considering. And with that in mind, it's thinking about also when you're at home, it's something you could do to not, make sure you reduce your food waste is go through your cabinets and try to make everything that you have in your cabinets. Try some new recipes, with things that you have laying around. This is a time where it's not necessarily smart to just keep continually, buying things or getting takeout constantly. This is a time where you can be more economical. You can try different, more low cost recipes and just use all the stuff you have at home, before you go ahead and, restock everything. It's good to have obviously some backup supply for at least a couple weeks. But this is definitely a time to empty out your closets and not waste food.
Great point, Ben. Thank you for that. And Caitlin, thank you for that point on milk as well. That's a very good point. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Let's see. Debbie has a question. Ben, do you think Texas A&M will ever strongly endorse a vegan lifestyle because of sustainability issues from animal-based foods?
I think that's very tricky on our campus, right? I think, agriculture is obviously very important. A lot of people are relying on animal products to feed themselves. And I don't see our university, and obviously we're a really big agricultural school. It's a really important part of our university. And so I don't see our university taking a stance that, everyone needs to go vegan and everyone has to live this vegan lifestyle. But I do think that we may see, more, I think there's definitely pockets on campus that promote, sustainable farming, sustainable eating, sustainable living, and eating more vegan foods. We have all these options on campus. So I think it's more of a matter of promoting the fact that you can eat vegan. there's tasty foods, they're healthy, they're better for the environment. But you don't have to completely change your lifestyle. You know, it's more just incorporate more vegan food, eat more vegan food. It doesn't mean that you can't eat meat. But yeah, I can't see us like taking a stand as a university because I don't think it's very realistic. But I do think that we can continue to promote that this is beneficial, and that you can make a difference by just substituting one meal a week, you know. And if you like it, great, keep going, do more, you know. But I think that's what it really takes is people, you know, making some small changes and realizing that this isn't so bad and I have options.
Great, thank you for that. And Debbie just made a comment. It's a tough one and totally understood, but imagine if we moved toward more plant-based stuff, we would be awesome, I'm sure, she said.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yes, definitely. Great question, Debbie. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Does anybody else, let's see, on the call, looks like Connor has a question, Ben. How do we address those that think meat is such an important component of a meal?
You know, I mean, I think that's really hard. I don't necessarily know if I have the best answer for that, because it's really cultural. It's really personal what you want to put on your plate, what you want to eat. And I think it's really hard to tell people, like, this is what you need to eat. This is why you need to eat it. And if you don't eat it, you know, like you're doing something wrong. Like, I don't think that is a conversation starter, and I don't think it's going to get you anywhere. And I say that because, you know, when I first became a vegetarian, you know, at first I was trying to convert people, but then at the same time, people would get mad at me just because I was a vegetarian, you know, and I realized, wow, that's not effective at all. You know, that's not going to motivate me. And I didn't like being told what to eat. So I don't think the strategy is not to tell people what to eat. I think the strategy really is that we continue to have more vegan foods. We have to continue to have more vegan options, and you have to slowly kind of change the culture in that way. Is just giving people options, having people realize this is really tasty, this is healthier for you, you know, this is good for the environment. So give those facts, but you can't, you know, necessarily try to change someone and tell them what they have to eat. It's just, hey, this is a great alternative. Have you tried this? Hey, did you know that? And you know, we serve these vegan burgers, or these Beyond Burgers on campus. Have you tried them? They're really good. So I think that is the way, is just kind of trying to, you know, through example, through positivity, and trying to just let people know there's options. These are really great options you can try. I'm not telling you what to do or what to eat, but something you can consider.
Great, thank you so much, Ben. Debbie wanted to make a comment, and I'm sure you know about these documentaries, but she said there are a lot of great documentaries to watch, including The Game Changers and Forks Over Knives. She ate meat until she watched Forks Over Knives because she thought she was healthy. So I don't know if you want to speak to any of those documentaries or any other resources that people could go to or share with friends.
Nothing in particular is coming to mind. I think what Debbie mentioned, those are some good documentaries that people could definitely check out. You know, like one of the more famous documentaries is Food Inc. I think that is something that has motivated a lot of people to kind of rethink the way that they're eating. So yeah, and there's definitely all kinds of documentaries about all of these issues that I've talked about today. You know, one of the things about structural racism is our prison system, and even that is impacting COVID-19. Basically, it's really spreading in the prisons. There are some states where, like, the majority of their cases are people in prisons, and it's not like it's just confined to those prisons. Like, it gets out from there, so it's not good for anybody. And also, someone in prison, it shouldn't necessarily be a death sentence, you know. So there's a really great documentary that talks about the prison system called 13th, and that's on Netflix. So that could be another documentary people could watch if they wanted to learn more about structural racism and what that looks like. And then you can kind of learn more about what is going on in the prisons with COVID-19 and connecting what you saw in the documentary to what you're seeing happen in real life. So that would be one that I would recommend.
Great, thank you. I think we've had some great conversation here. Really appreciate your tips and insight. I'm not sure if anybody else has any questions for Ben. He did leave his contact information on the slide that's currently on the screen if you'd like to reach out to him personally. Ben, I would like to thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today. And I'd like to also thank Kelly Wellman of the Office of Sustainability, who is joining us. And we initially, when I approached your office, we all had a conversation about how we could do something for a Flourish presentation regarding sustainability. So just want to really thank both of you so much for this presentation and just what you're doing in general for our campus community and just the general community that we live in here in Brazos Valley.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And it's definitely a team effort. You know, our office, the only way we can make sustainable changes on campus is by working with our partners all across campus. You know, we have all stakeholders and all sorts of different units on campus, from utilities and energy services, to transportation services, to the Office for Diversity. And there's so many more that I mean, I don't necessarily have the time to name right now. But sustainability is a team effort. It takes all of us working together. It's the individual choices that we make, but it is also the institutional choices that we make, the governmental choices that we make. And I think, you know, there is a message of hope. Like, you know, we can make our world better. We have solutions. We know what we need to do. It's just finding that political will, that economic will to make these choices to better the world for everybody. But that's really what it takes, is working together.
Great, well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you, Kelly. I see your friendly face there with the century tree behind you.
I certainly don't deserve thanks. I appreciate the opportunity that Flourish has given us to visit with folks and connect. Ben did all of the work and the research.
Yes.
So I don't deserve any thanks for that, but we appreciate what Flourish is doing, trying to, you know, you and your group are doing what's socially sustainable, really, and trying to give people a different peace of mind and well-being. And I know that some of Ben's talk was heavy. It's really important, though, that we understand socially and systemically how all these pieces connect. So we appreciate the platform. Thank you, Ben, for doing all the work.
Oh yeah, no problem. And when I mentioned all the people doing the work, I didn't even bring up Flourish. I apologize, Sarah. You know, I think Flourish is doing a lot of great work on our campus in terms of mental health and mental wellness. And that's definitely also part of social sustainability, is your own mental wellness. And, you know, just being able to, in a time like this, when we're all stuck at home, mental health is really, really important. You know, a lot of people struggle with that on a regular day, and it can only be worse now. So seeking out those resources that we have available, participating in Flourish talks, they just, you know, help you, give you some ideas to keep your mind at ease. And like Kelly said, this is a heavy talk. You know, I'm a sociologist, so like that's kind of how I view the world, is I'm looking at these really huge issues and how they're impacting us. But hopefully there was some other things in here, you know, the vegan recipes and those kind of things where you can do some things at home that are going to, you know, be good for your mental health as well. So definitely take out that time to focus on your mental health, and Flourish can help you do that.
Definitely, Ben. Thank you so much for that plug. And just wanted to mention too, if anybody has any ideas for Flourish programming as we go forward into the summer, we're currently putting together our summer calendar. And we'd love if anybody wants to host a program, co-host with us, kind of get something going. We'd love to hear your ideas. So feel free to either reach out to me personally, or you can email our general email address, flourish@tamu.edu. So thank you, everybody. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your week. It's so beautiful outside today. So I hope everybody's able to get out and get some fresh air and vitamin D out there.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Sarah, and thanks everyone.
Thank you so much. And if anybody would like a recording of this, I'm not going to be publishing it, but feel free to reach out personally, and I'm happy to send it to you via email. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Everyone take care.
Bye, everybody.